Welcome to the Ford on Sports podcast. I'm Austin Ford here to give you my takes on sports. Now, we just witnessed the NFL draft this past weekend. Finally, we had some live sports to look forward to, and it was a long 3 days. Thursday obviously took about 3 to 4 hours. Um, that was okay. Day two, it kind of drained us out a little bit, and then I watched all of day three, man, and it got really tiring. I do want to put out that all of these guys that I'm going to name are players that have been technically put on the roster as of now, because there are some guys that are late seventh round picks that technically they got drafted, but they're just not listed in the team's release of who they draft. So whether that means they haven't signed their contract, I don't know what it means. But these are all the players that have been announced under their draft board. Like for the Patriots, they drafted another guy later in the draft. He was not on the board for the list of players that they said they drafted. So it's just, I'm going through it the way that at least Bleacher Report had it. Patriots, we'll start with them. My second favorite team alongside the Bears. Obviously, you gotta fix the needs when you're New England, and your biggest need is glaring at you. You just lost the greatest quarterback of all time in Tom Brady. So what should you do? You should go draft a quarterback. I thought they'd be smart enough to do it. That was one thing they did not draft. They didn't go quarterback in this year's draft. Instead, they took some chances here. Took Kyle Duggar. I believe he's a D2 kid out of LRU. It's a very small school pick here. It feels like a Belichick pick, but really risky here, especially when you still had Antoine Winfield on the board. You still had who would have been. I'm not exactly sure who was still on the board, but I know Antoine Winfield was. It was a little bit of a stretch there with the Patriots. Josh Uche, defenseman out of Michigan. They drafted Anthony Jennings, linebacker out of Alabama. Devin Asiasi, tight end out of UCLA. Keep in mind, there were still a lot of top tight ends on the board, whether that be a Bryson Hopkins, Hunter Bryant, or even Albert Okwuegbunam. But they took Devin Asiasi, then they traded back up and they got Dalton King about 4 or 5 picks after they took Asiasi. So they drafted 2 tight ends, same round, within a few picks of each other. Then they went and drafted kicker today at Julian Rawasser out of Marshall. Then they ended up going guard from Michigan, Michael Onwenu. Then they went offensive tackle out of Wake Forest, Justin Herron. And then to cap off, they took linebacker out of Wyoming, Cash Maluia. For the Patriots, I give them a C minus. You can, if you're watching the YouTube video, you see the Patriots helmet behind me. Very disappointed how this turned out. I was hoping maybe for a Jordan Love in this year's draft, and when we missed out on him first round, I was like maybe a Jake Fromm round 3, round 4. Jake Fromm ended up falling further than that, and the Patriots passed on him multiple times. But just real disappointing he didn't walk out of this weekend, this draft with a quarterback. And I assume we're gonna wait till probably May and get a Cam Newton, maybe trade for an Andy Dalton. I don't know what the scenario is gonna be there. Maybe we go out and we trade the Colts back for Jacoby Brissett. I'm not sure, but the few names that I'm looking at on here that I'm okay with is Josh Uche and Anthony Jennings. 2 guys, I've seen them both play. Josh Uche played good at Michigan. He can pretty much do a lot of things you ask of him out of there. And then Anthony Jennings, another solid linebacker out of Bama. I think he could be a starter for the Patriots. He's going to be a good player. I don't know how great he's going to be, but Anthony Jennings, good player there. And then there's just a lot of questionable picks like a Kyle Duggar, Asiasi Keene. I'm not going to judge a kicker, but they didn't address their biggest glaring need at the receiver position or at the quarterback position, obviously with the loss of Tom Brady. So that was what gave them a C minus in my opinion. And let's stick to the theme of the teams I like because as you can see behind me if you're watching YouTube, we got the Mitchell Trubisky picture right there. Let's stick with it. I am very disappointed in what went down this weekend for Chicago. Very, very disappointed. Going into the weekend, offensive line was a focus point, if you ask me. Our offensive line last year did not let Mitchell Trubisky have any time, and that made him look a whole lot worse than what he really is. A lot of these people that are sitting there talking about Mitchell Trubisky, they don't really realize that his receiving core led the league in drops, and his offensive line was one of the worst in the league. He was getting rushed almost every play. And that's not. See, other teams in this draft, we'll talk about them later. One I'm going to talk about next. You build the offensive line with your young quarterback and you give them weapons. The Bears never did that with Trubisky. They've never focused on that. And that's why he's not viewed as a successful player. You put Mahomes in this situation, Mahomes wouldn't be as great as he is. It's not because Mahomes isn't a great guy. It's you gotta have the players around you to be successful, and the Bears never did that, and they continue not to do it. I said it, I'll say it again. Ryan Pace needs to go if this is what he thinks is our needs. First pick in this year's draft, we don't draft offensive linemen. We don't draft cornerback, even though that's a need. We don't take Grant Delpit, the safety. Our strong safety next year is Deion Bush. We take tight end. Mind you, we have 10 tight ends on roster. Yes, I know it's going to get cut down, but Cole Kmet's really just a depth pick right now because we have Jimmy Graham that we just spent money on in free agency. We have Adam Shaheen for the time being. I don't like the pick. Cole Kmet could turn out to be great. I said it earlier today when I was kind of just talking about the Bears. I was like, they better hope he turns out to be a Greg Olsen kind of guy because it's not that I don't like Cole Kmet. I just don't think he was the need we needed. If you wanted Cole Kmet, I think you could have traded down. I really do. But he has to come in. He has to be a Greg Olsen kind of guy for this pick to be worth it because you passed up on needs. You passed up on Lloyd Cushenberry, offensive lineman. You passed up on Prince Tega, who ended up going later than a lot of the other guys you picked. You passed up on a lot of offensive linemen, and you couldn't take him. So let me go down the list here. They went Cole Kmet, tight end out of Notre Dame, Jalen Johnson, corner out of Utah, Travis Gibson, defensive end out of Tulsa, Kendall Vilder, cornerback out of Georgia Southern, Darnell Mooney out of Tulane, receiver, speedy receiver. And then they went two offensive tackles to cap out the night, Arlington Hambright out of Colorado, and Lacavius Simmons out of Tennessee State. See, like I said, I don't know what we were doing. I really don't. Jalen Johnson was my favorite pick of this year's draft. Jalen Johnson's a good corner. He's going to be great on the other side of Kyle Fuller. A lot of the fan base was questioning the pick because of Jalen Johnson's injury concerns. And yes, I do agree. Trayvon Diggs was on the board. Yeah, okay. Your point, you're getting a good player out of Jalen Johnson. When he is on the field, he's going to be good. It doesn't matter. You know what? Eddie Jackson had the same concerns. Was he going to be on the field? Guess what? He was on the field, and when he was great. I like the pick of Jalen Johnson. Then we get to defensive end, Travis Gibson. I'm not saying the kid's not good. I'm just saying I don't understand it. Right now, if you look at our roster, we just brought in Rob Quinn. Obviously, we have Akeem Hicks. We have Roy Robertson Harris, who is actually Travis Gibson's comparison. I just don't really see the need here. You can, even if you want, you could somewhat run Belal maybe as a defensive end on some schemes, but not necessarily. Travis Gibson right here is a depth pick. Like I said, you still need a safety. At this point, you still need a receiver 3. You still need offensive linemen. You still passed on a lot of offensive linemen. Take Travis Gibson here. Then we also got another depth pick in Kendall Builder. I knew this was going to be a depth pick because you're not going to draft another corner after you just took Jalen Johnson without expecting it to be depth. Kendall Builder is going to be probably, I would assume, a slot corner. He's like 5'10", something like that, at Georgia Southern. Obviously, I'm assuming we're going to move on from Buster Screen, maybe move on from Duke Shelley, but Kendall Builder, right now as a depth pick, he could turn out to be something good, but I still want to say it's a bad pick there, especially when you have all these offensive linemen still on the board, because at this point you still had Shane Lemieux, you still had Jake Hansen, you still had Prince Tega. You had a lot of good O-linemen, solid day one guys. They might not be great guys, but they're good, solid players that could go in and make an immediate impact for you. Next, we had Darnell Mooney at a Tulane receiver. Once again, Prince Tega was still on the board at this. I'd rather have seen him because we still would have had our 196th pick and 200th pick, and that would have allowed us to take maybe a KJ Hill, who I think is a better receiver than Darnell Mooney. I understand what you want with Darnell Mooney. He's fast. He could basically be our burner, our slot guy, but I'd rather have a KJ Hill, and I'd rather cut our losses, take a KJ Hill, and get another one or two offensive linemen, because at the end, and this is what fooled the Bears fans, and the Bears fans are praising this draft and think it's something great because we addressed our need at offensive linemen. This is not addressing the need. We took 2 offensive tackles, but we took the bottom tier ones. I'm not saying they're bottom tier. Prince Tega was the last quality starter. Arlington Hambright and Latavius Simmons are going to be projects. I want somebody that's going to be able to come in immediately because our offensive line last year was not good. So we need people to get in there and be able to put in the work immediately. And these just aren't those guys. I don't know if they'll be great in the future. As a Bears fan, I want them to be. But you took the lowest tier offensive lineman you could, just to say you could address the needs, just to fool your fan base. And you might have fooled them, but you're not fooling me. I don't like the picks. I don't care if you're my favorite team or not. D+ Chicago. Horrible effort. Ryan Pace, you need to fix this if you're going to stay in Chicago. I don't want to see another horrible draft like this. You had one good pick all weekend, and that was Jalen Johnson. Thank you for Jalen Johnson. Cole Kmet might be great, but it wasn't in need. And now let's go to a team that I actually really think they did the right thing. And I'll tell you why they did the right thing. Because they're investing in their quarterback. You look at this team and I give them an A. I gave them an A on this draft. First round, they took their guy in Tua Tagovailoa. The Dolphins tanked for Tua, and they got him, quarterback out of Alabama. Now, what did they do in the rest of the draft? I'm not going to read the names in order. I'm going to read their names based on what I'm seeing here. Austin Jackson, offensive tackle, shows investment into it. He's not going to be great at the beginning. He could be a day one starter because that offensive line is not good in Miami. He is going to develop alongside Tua. Then you got Robert Hunt, another developmental guy. He's a guard out of Louisiana. He's going to be able to develop alongside Tua. So already you're seeing this investment in Tua. They're getting it together. They're saying, you know what? We're gonna get Tua some blockers. He's gonna develop with these guys. He's gonna go through camp with these guys, and they're gonna be immediate. And then on top of that, they did a great job. They took Noah Igbenogany out of Auburn, cornerback. I love the pick. One of my favorite guys in this year's draft. And then later in the draft, they get Raekwon Davis, a very solid defensive tackle out of Alabama. That's a day one starter there for the Dolphins. He is going to be a good guy. I don't know if he'll be great, but he's a very quality player. And then you go get Brandon Jones, safety out of Texas, another guy that I've seen a couple times. I like his game. I think he could be in a spot where And maybe in a year or two, he could be a starter for that team. He might get some time here this year. And then they went another guy, Georgia guard, Solomon Kinley, big guy, once again gets to develop with Tua. And then they took Jason Strowbridge out of University of North Carolina, defensive end. I'm not going to lie to you and say I know exactly what he does. I don't. But they also got Curtis Weaver late in this draft. I think that was an absolute steal out of Boise State. Really solid player in Curtis Weaver. The Dolphins, if I was there in person, I would have gave you guys a standing ovation. You guys did exactly what you needed to do in this year's draft. They know they're not going to be competitive next year. They're not going to be competitive. I cannot stress that enough. They're still going to be a bottom 10 team in the league, but they showed investment in their quarterback. They went out and got guys that are going to be good in 1 or 2 years, and they're going to be good when Tua gets to the point. Mitch, what happened to him? His offensive line? His receivers? What's his performance like? You can't expect somebody to be great if the players around him are not great. And that's the same thing here with the Dolphins. They go out and they get guys with good potential in Hunt and Jackson, and then they go out and they get a very solid guard in Kinley. The Dolphins did a great job here in this draft. I applaud you. Gave you guys an A. Next we got the Giants, the New York Giants. They're in a more interesting situation here in this year's draft. Like we've already talked about in my round 1 review, they went Andrew Thomas, offensive tackle out of Georgia, with their first pick. A little confusing with guys like Jedrick Wills on the board, but day 2 you picked it up. Xavier McKinney, real good safety out of Alabama. He's going to be very solid for you guys. Matt Pert out of UConn, very solid offensive tackle. He's going to be good alongside Andrew Thomas. And then they got Darnay Holmes, corner out of UCLA. He's a pretty good, speedy guy. And then you got, I'm repping the Oregon Ducks for a reason. Shane Lemieux, guard out of Oregon. You guys got a steal. He's a really good player. I don't know why he would have fell through the cracks. It might be because he doesn't have that elite talent, elite upside. He's just going to be a day 1 guy that's going to be just a real solid guy for you. I love Shane Lemieux out of Oregon. Part of the Duck fan, man. You guys got a good one there. Then you got Cameron Brown, linebacker at Penn State, that I got to see a couple times this year, and I liked his game too. He could play pretty good at that linebacker position. Then you got Carter Coughlin out of Minnesota, defensive end. T.J. Brunson, linebacker out of South Carolina, and then Chris Williamson at corner from Minnesota to round out your draft. I gave him a B. I gave them B for one reason and one reason only. They got their O-line help, and they got their starting safety. I'm not really sold on some of their other decisions, like defensive end and T.J. Brunson. I don't know how good of picks those really were, but for me, McKinney, Pert, Thomas, and Lemieux were good picks, and that's why they got a B. Once again, let's talk about another Oregon boy. Chargers, they took Justin Herbert, and for all of you critics that are sitting out there saying you're questioning Herbert and whether he has the passion and whether he really has the it factor and whether he's really going to be a good NFL quarterback, I'm going to let you know, yes, he is going to be a good quarterback. He's 6'6". The man can throw the ball. At times he can be inaccurate. That is okay. He still had a 66% completion rate. Very good. You want to know why? Why are you questioning his character? Why are you question whether he has it? He went from 4-8 his freshman year and made the team into a 10-2 team. And outside of Johnson and the running backs, they really didn't have much on offense once Jacob Breland went down. They really didn't. I don't know why you're questioning him. great pickup for the Chargers. You're giving him a situation to succeed. He's going to have the best situation out of all the quarterbacks. He's got Keenan Allen. He's got Mike Williams. He has Austin Eckler. In this draft, they added Joshua Kelly, running back UCLA. He's going to have him to possibly give the ball to out of the backfield. Joe Reed, receiver, Virginia. And also KJ Hill, receiver, Ohio State, who I've already mentioned on the show. A really solid receiver out of Ohio State. And then on top of that, they even got more on the defensive side. They got Kenneth Murray, real solid linebacker out of Oklahoma. He's going to be good. Like I said, leading into the draft, he is part of the reason why that Oklahoma defense turned around this year. And then they also got Aloy Gilman, safety out of Notre Dame. So when you look at it, they had a really solid draft up and down. They didn't really have any great late round steals outside of KJ Hill, and they didn't really have anything in the middle. That's kind of why I gave them a B here. Herbert, Murray, real solid picks. I think you did the right thing there. Very solid. And outside of KJ Hill, I'm not really sure. Joshua Kelly, I don't know if he was the best pick. Same thing with Joe Reed, but that's why I'm giving you a B. Very respectable, though, for you guys. You did better than the Bears. Next, we got the Eagles. One thing about the Eagles is they also did make a trade in this year's draft for Marquise Goodwin. I believe it was a 4th-round pick, so they are not letting that situation where they have backup receivers and receivers they've never had on roster play for them the last few weeks of the season. They're not allowing that to happen. They go out and they go receiver heavy. They go out and they make big moves. They get Marquise Goodwin. And then the first pick of the draft, they go out, they get Jalen Reagor out of TCU, the speedy guy everybody fell in love with. I figured he'd get that little jump, and he did. And then this is what kind of gave people the motivation to really criticize the Eagles here. They took Jalen Hurts, quarterback out of Oklahoma. I like the pick here. There's a lot of critics of this pick, simply because you just re-signed Carson Wentz. Eagles fans, listen to me and listen to me good. You do realize Carson Wentz is injury prone. This isn't a pick because they want to replace Carson Wentz. This is a pick because once Carson Wentz goes down, who's going to back him up? Jalen Hurts, real solid quarterback. You know exactly what you're going to get at him. He's consistent. I was having a late rise. He was having a late rise on my board of who I wanted the Bears to draft. And I didn't really want quarterback, but I was thinking, you know what, Jalen Hurts, he's a competitor. He's going to get the job done. I'd like to see it happen. Jalen Hurts going to the Eagles. This isn't a pick where he's going to replace Carson Wentz. This is an insurance policy just in case Carson Wentz goes down. I like the pick. Good stuff there from the Eagles. Whether you fans like it or not, it doesn't matter. This right here is because you have an injury-prone player. Davion Taylor, linebacker out of Colorado, was next. Then Kayvon Wallace, safety out of Clemson. Then there added some offensive linemen and Jack Driscoll out of Auburn, offensive tackle. And they also went in later in the draft and got the other Auburn offensive tackle in Prince Tega Wanabo, who I have praised as who I thought the Bears should have got. I liked him. He was a guy that was probably a 4th, 5th round talent. He fell all the way to the 6th round. I would have loved to have him. He's a very big guy. I like him. Great story, too, coming over, but whatever. We didn't get him. They got him. John Hightower, Boise State receiver. They also got Sean Bradley, linebacker out of Temple. And they got Kez Watkins, receiver out of USM. Very solid draft. Like I said, they went real receiver heavy. They went out, they got Kez Watkins. They went out and they got a John Hightower. They went out and they got a Jalen Reagor. And then they also traded for Marquise Godwin. So they added 4 receivers. They were not playing around in this year's draft. They said, you know what? If D-Jack gets hurt or age gets to him and he's not as productive, and if Alshon comes back and gets hurt like he's known to do, we're not going to sit in a situation where we don't have a guy to be next. We're going to have at least 1 or 2 guys that are going to be ready. And then on top of that, we're going to have one or two insurance plans in Kes Watkins and John Hightower. I like what you did. I gave the Eagles a B+, and I gave them a B+ also because of the Marquise Goodwin trade. That is factored into the B+. Other than that, you probably would have had a B. I did like where you're going with the draft. Now, you can make an argument for the next team. The next team is the Cowboys. You can make an argument that they had the best draft. I did not see it that way. At first, I did not think CeeDee Lamb was a good pick here, receiver at Oklahoma. I also did say on the other one, he was not a need. I stick to that. He was not a need, but you got lucky. Jerry Jones, you got lucky. Trayvon Diggs was there at your second round pick. Cornerback out of Alabama. Very solid player going into the year. He's one of the best corners. Very good pick there. You didn't take the corners we all thought you would have in the first round. You waited to the second round and you got the same kind of player, whether it be by design or not. You did it. Great job there, Jerry. I'm giving you my props. I did. I'm calling myself out here. I did say CeeDee Lamb was not the right guy, especially when you needed the receivers, but he was. Because you got lucky, and you still got Trayvon Diggs out of Bama. And then on top of that, you got a very solid defensive tackle out of Oklahoma and Neville Gallimore. I really liked him. Then they added Reggie Robinson, safety out of Tulsa. Tyler Biadasz, guard out of Wisconsin, who was really good. I think he could have been another guy the Bears should have looked at. Bradley Anae, defensive end out of Utah, who was a pretty productive player last year for the Utes. And they finished their draft off by getting possibly the guy to come and replace Dak Prescott after Dak Prescott might or might not resign next year. And Ben DiNucci out of James Madison, quarterback. I don't know much about this guy, but obviously Jerry Jones did his research, and he knows what Ben DiNucci is all about. I gave him an A-, real solid draft, Jerry Jones. Neville Gallimore was a home run hit. Tyler Biadasz, really good pick. Bradley Anae, really good pick. CeeDee Lamb, by some miracle, it panned out. It was a very big risk. It panned out. You got your corner at the end of the day. So I'm going to say CeeDee Lamb was a great pick. Trayvon Diggs was a great pick. Good stuff here from the Cowboys. I like it. A- for the Cowboys. Next, we have the Buffalo Bills. The Buffalo Bills, they didn't have as great of a draft as a lot of the teams that I've just been going around. The Bills, they was okay. First pick, they took a guy out of Iowa, one of them edge defensive end rushers, DT, whatever you want to call him, AJ Epinesa, Iowa. I liked the guy. I thought he could be a first-round guy, so it was very quality getting him where they did because they didn't have a first-round pick. And then their next pick, I wasn't necessarily in agreement with, and that would have been Zach Moss, running back out of Utah. I'm not in agreement with wasting a pick here on Zach Moss. Not that he's a bad player and it's wasting a pick. Just because Devin Singletary's on your roster, I figured, you know what, he's gonna be your guy. I wouldn't have used running back here. I really wouldn't have. Then they went Gabriel Davis, receiver out of UCF. Solid pick. And honestly, the next guy is the reason why I give them a C, because I was really on the verge of giving them a C- D+ range. But they got Jake Fromm, quarterback out of Georgia. I think Jake Fromm is a really good player. Don't get me wrong. He's not going to blow you away by any physicals. He's not going to blow you away with a big arm. Just a very smart player, a very solid player. He kind of fits that Tom Brady mold. He's 2 steps ahead of the defense at all times. He doesn't make many mistakes, and when he does, it kind of shocks you. Jake Fromm, he's going into a situation where he's behind Josh Allen. I don't know how well he's going to be able to develop behind Josh Allen, because obviously they're putting a lot of investment into Josh Allen, because we all know Josh Allen has a very high ceiling. I loved what I saw from Josh Allen last year. Obviously being able to run. He had a run that probably should have won them their playoff game. It didn't because of the penalties, but Jake Fromm here, very solid backup option for the Bills. I don't know if he's going to be challenging per se Josh Allen, because I thought Jake Fromm could be a very solid quarterback in this league. But for now, at least, he's going to be backing up Josh Allen until Josh Allen either moves on or gets hurt or whatever. Please don't let Josh Allen get hurt. Knock on wood. But I really do like the pick there of Jake Fromm. And then we get another kicker off the board and Tyler Bass out of Georgia Southern. Then we got a guy that led the Pac-12 in receiving touchdowns, and that's including a first-round pick against him in Brandon Ayuk. And that's Isaiah Hodgins, receiver out of Oregon State. I like him. He's gonna go up and he's gonna catch you the ball. Like I said, led the Pac-12 in receiving touchdowns. So obviously he's a very solid player when he's beating out the likes of a Brandon Ayuk. That's just how it is, man. That's just how it is. I like it. Isaiah Hodgins, late round pick here. I think it's a good pick there for the Bills. And then they also got Dane Jackson, corner out of Pittsburgh. The only reason I gave them a C here is Jake Fromm and Isaiah Hodgins, to me, have some good upside. And then obviously Zach Moss and AJ Epinesa have some good upside. But it's just a very normal, just nothing too crazy in this draft. It's just a really basic draft here for the Bills. I don't really think they got much better, if better at all. They did get some depth, but I don't know how much they really got better here in this year's draft. That's why I gave them a C. Next, we had the Ravens. Ravens were one of the best teams, in my opinion, that did a good job drafting this year. They got the most Ravens-like guy, Patrick Queen, with their first pick, linebacker out of LSU, real solid linebacker. Second round, they got J.K. Dobbins, running back at Ohio State, just to help Lamar Jackson some more, because we already know the Ravens were one of the best rushing teams last year, and why not add another good one in J.K. Dobbins? Then they went out and they got Justin Madubuike, Texas A&M defensive tackle, real solid guy, good combine. He's going to go get you some people to collapse on him. He's going to eat up some tackles. You can have him get eaten up, and you can have a guy like a Patrick Queen go in on a blitz, and he's going to be untouched because Madubuike is going to demand two guys. Madubuike is good. I like that pick. Then they did another good pick in Devin Duvernay, receiver out of Texas. I've even said it on my mock draft. You could get a Devin Duvernay 4th round. He's a good player. He's speedy. He was one of the highlights of Texas. Obviously, Texas wasn't as good as they sometimes are. Sam Ehlinger was able to get the ball to Devin Duvernay at some points this season. Duvernay was one of the bright spots of that offense. I like the pick there. It's a really good pairing with Lamar Jackson. And then another guy I really like here, Malik Harrison, linebacker, Ohio State. To me, he still has some potential to reach on. Very solid pick there. And then they finally drafted a non-power conference player in Mississippi State's Tyree Phillips, offensive lineman. He's a guard. Just another piece to the puzzle with that offense. Then they went out, got Ben Breedson, another guard out of Michigan this time. Real solid for Michigan this year. Then they got Broderick Washington, defensive end out of Texas Tech. Not a great pick, but with the rest of this year's draft, they did real good. And then they got one of my guys, and James Prochet, Southern Methodist University's receiver. I like him. He's speedy. He's not the biggest, but he's speedy. I love him. James Prochet. You guys got yourself 2 good receivers in this year's draft. You guys got yourself a steal in Malik Harrison. You guys got 2 good guards in Ben Breedson and Tyree Phillips. You got a steal in J.K. Dobbins. You got a steal in Patrick Queen. It was a real solid draft. The Ravens did the best they could with it. I really did think the Ravens had a very good draft. Now, let's get into an A-plus team. This team did perfect all weekend long, if you ask me, and that is the Cincinnati Bengals. I think you already know where I'm going with this. Joe Burrow, quarterback, LSU, best player at the quarterback position. You could not go wrong there if you were the Bengals, as long as you could have if you took anybody else, but you weren't going to go wrong with Joe Burrow. You got him at number one. He's going to be the face of the franchise. He's from the Ohio area. He grew up there. His dad coached at Ohio University. Everything storybook beginning, storybook end. He's starting where he began, and he's going to be a Cincinnati Bengal. I love the kid. He has a big arm. He's a big player moment. He has the mojo. He has the it factor. You watch him from last year and you watch him to this year. You can tell the kid puts in the work. He went out there and he worked with Justin Jefferson. He went out there and he worked with Jamar Chase. He went out there and he worked with Clyde Edwards-Helaire. He got that offense flowing. He flipped that offense from something that was not great to something that was the best last season in college football. And that is all because of Joe Burrow and Joe Brady. But Joe Burrow was probably one of the biggest parts to that. I love Joe Burrow. I've spoken highly of him in the past, and I'm going to continue to speak highly of him. I have the capability of going to some Bengals games since I live somewhat near there, at least until I go out to college. So at the beginning of the next season, maybe some preseason games, you might get something with me going to see Joe Burrow. And on top of that, I'm also going to see my favorite what am I going to say here? Player that I have affiliations with. Obviously, Oregon and Illinois are my two colleges since I live in Illinois and I'm going to Oregon for college. I don't have favoritism towards, but he's my favorite player in this year's draft. T. Higgins, receiver out of Clemson. I love him. He's a 4.43 guy at the 40 on his pro day, not his actual combine. He's a 6'3 guy. He's a jump ball receiver. He's a good route runner. He can go up and make the big-time catches in big-time games. He did it on the best scale of them all at Clemson, playing the top talent in the country. I love the guy. T. Higgins, first pick in the second round. You go and get Joe Burrow, another playmaker. He has A.J. Green. He has Boyd. He has John Ross. He has Joe Mixon. But A.J. Green's injury prone. How can you really trust A.J. Green? Is he going to be as good as what he once was? Who knows? That's why you go get T. Higgins. T. Higgins is definitely going to be good. I said it. I think the kid has superstar potential. I don't know why some people had him sliding down a little bit, kind of soured on him. I still think the kid has superstar potential. I love both these guys. They're a dynamic duo in 2 or 3 years. I'm telling you, it's going to be a deadly receiving quarterback tandem. And then on top of that, they went out and got Logan Wilson. Now, this was the only really questionable pick, for me at least, because Zach Bond was on the board. I wasn't really sold on the idea of Logan Wilson going before Zach Bond, just because Zach Bond is a first-round guy. And you guys are not taking him. He's still on the board. He didn't get drafted till the 3rd round. You had to take Zach Bond there. But day 3, they got Akeem Davis-Gaither, linebacker out of Appalachian State. You like to see them App State guys go. They're a well-coached team. This kid, he's fast. I like Akeem Davis-Gaither. I think he's going to be a very solid player in the NFL. I don't know if he has the star potential per se, but he's going to be a solid guy, at least for the Bengals. The Bengals aren't really great at the linebacker position. He's going to be solid. He might have a chance to step in day one. Logan Wilson will too. But Akeem Davis-Gaither, you got to love them App State guys. Then on top of that, they got Khalid Kareem, defensive end out of Notre Dame. This is a guy, I thought he probably should have been drafted a little higher. He was good for Notre Dame this year, a good rusher. I liked his talent when he was on the field. I think he could be real solid. And then you got Hakeem Adeniji, offensive tackle out of Kansas, another solid offensive lineman. And then I think you might have got a steal of the draft here. This is one that I think might have been a steal of the draft because he was real good while he was on the field. You got him in the 7th round in Marcus Bailey, linebacker out of Purdue. The only reason that he fell a lot was because he's had 2 bad leg injuries. I think it was like an ACL, But the kid's very productive. He's going to be one of your best players every year. He was for the Purdue Boilermakers. I don't see why he couldn't be for the Bengals. I really like the pick for Marcus Bailey. You got him late. And they were saying it was a little bit of a boomer bust pick. Not really. It's really just a boom pick in the 7th round. You're more than capable of missing. You can miss the pick in the 7th round, and nobody's gonna care. But if you hit that pick because you took a chance on somebody, even though he was injury prone, but you knew he had all the talent, now that's going to look good. But if you take a guy in the 7th round, he just doesn't pan out, nobody's going to look at it and be like, well, they lost that. I don't think we've ever done that. But I like the pick. A+ for the Bengals. Great stuff there, Zach Taylor. Great stuff there. I love it. Next, we have a NFC North rival in the Detroit Lions. I was a little stingy with your grade. Jeffrey Okudah, cornerback out of Ohio State. Very good corner out of Ohio State. On top of that, 2nd round, you guys got a steal in DeAndre Swift, running back out of Georgia. I don't know if that was a need. I really don't, because you have Kerryon Johnson. I think Kerryon Johnson is your guy, but DeAndre Swift, a very good running back. He probably shouldn't have been there in the 2nd round. I thought he should have been in the 1st rounder, at least to the Chiefs. But DeAndre Swift, very good pickup. Then on top of that, you went out and you got a brother of a guy that's already on your team, and Romeo Okwara's brother, Julian Okwara, defensive end out of Notre Dame, another very solid player to be adding. Then you went out and you got an Ohio State Buckeye and Jonah Jackson guard, a very solid player there too. Then on top of that, you went out and got Logan Sternberg, guard out of Kentucky, and then you went out and you got Quintez Cephas, receiver out of Wisconsin. I think this kid is gonna be good. He might not be in a spot where you guys think he might be good. You might not be hearing a lot of these guys say he's gonna be good. But when you turn on the tape of Cephas, at least for me, he jumps off the camera. He was one of the biggest spots or bright spots of Wisconsin, at least to me. He's a guy that's going to demand the ball. I really love the pick. He's going to go in a situation where he's not going to be the number 1 receiver, obviously. And I think he could be a very good receiver 3. Cephas, I really do like that pick. Then you got Jason Huntley, running back out of New Mexico State. John Panisi, defensive tackle out of Utah, and Jason Cornell, defensive end out of Ohio State. For the Lions, I look at this draft, and the names that are jumping off the board are Okudah, Swift, Okwara, Jonah Jackson, Cephas. And those names, to me, are A- draft. But since you're the Lions, I got to give you a B+. I just can't be giving a rival an A. I can't. I'm sorry. Lions. I like what you did, but you're an NFC North rival to Chicago, and I can't be handing out A's to teams like you. So I'm gonna give them a B+, but it's a very big, very high B+, for the Detroit Lions. Now we also have another team that didn't have many picks this year, but some people are saying they just had a normal draft. I really liked their draft. I really did. You didn't have many picks, so you know what you do? You take just take good players. And that is exactly what the Saints did. The Saints, with their first pick, they took guard out of Michigan, Cesar Ruiz. He might have been in there in the 2nd round, but we saw that run of offensive lineman late in the 1st round, so he probably wouldn't have been. But Cesar Ruiz, it addressed a need. Very good player you're going to get. He might be a little bit of a project, but I think he will have a lot of upside at the guard position. And then on top of that, you got Zach Bond, a linebacker out of Wisconsin. You did trade up to get him, but I give you an A+ on that trade up because Zach Bond should not have been there in the 3rd round. You guys got a steal there because a lot of teams passed on Zach Bond. He's a 1st round talent. You guys got him in the 3rd round. You gave up whatever you had to give up to go get him in the 3rd round. I think you got a steal in Zach Bond. And then there's another guy, a guy that we thought might go late day 2, or well, actually late round 2, early round 3, somewhere around that, and he didn't. And Adam Trotman, the tight end out of Dayton, he ended up being there later in the draft, and the Saints went out and got him as well. So very solid there. And then late, they went out and they traded up and they got a possible replacement for Drew Brees. I wouldn't say it is, but they went out and got Tommy Stevens, the quarterback out of Mississippi State. I gave him an A+ on this draft. They didn't have many picks to work with, but with the picks they did, they addressed needs, and they went out and got best player available. Zach Baum is a steal. Cesar Ruiz has a lot of upside. Adam Trotman, another guy, has a lot of upside. Getting him probably a late second round, early third round grade, and he ends up getting him that late in the draft. I think the Saints got it. I think they did really good with this draft. They might not have had all the picks. They might not have had all the flashy players to get the A+ from a lot of these other sites or whatever grading these people. I gave them an A+ because it was just good. They got good players, and I'm not gonna fault them for that. That was good stuff there from the Saints. Next, we got the Washington Redskins. Obviously, we all know they hit a home run with their first pick in Chase Young, defensive end out of Ohio State, one of the best pass rushers in the league already. I guarantee you next year he's going to be an elite pass rusher at his first year, just like how Nick Bosa was last year. He is going to be, if not better than Nick Bosa was last year. We all know Nick Bosa was one of the premier guys last year. So just watch out for that, because Chase Young is going to be good. He's going to be great along with that front seven that they already have in Washington. I'm looking forward to seeing it. And then they went out and they got an Antonio Gibson, a guy who could play receiver and running back. He's out of Memphis, a fast kid. It's a very interesting pick there. I'm not sold on him where they got him, but he could be good. Sadiq Charles, also a very interesting guy here. Sadiq Charles is a guy that he's very good when he's on the field, but he also does some stupid stuff off the field that could hinder him from getting on the field. And that's something that once you make it to the league, you got to put it aside you. Hopefully Sadiq can do it. The Redskins got to get him in the right state of mind. He can't be doing anything like that anymore. He could be very good. He has a lot of upside. I think it's a good pick, especially where they got him. They don't have much investment in him, but he could be something special down the line. And this receiver that they got next was probably one of these receivers that I would have had as the second-tier receiver in this year's draft. And it's Antonio Gandy Golden, receiver out of Liberty. I really think the kid's going to be good. You've heard about him all the way through this draft process. He's just a really polished receiver. I think he's going to be something special out of Liberty. He's going to a team that not necessarily known for offensive passing, but that could change with Antonio Gandy Golden. Then they went out and they got a Keith Ismail, guard out of South Dakota State University. Then they also went out got a good linebacker out of Khaleke Hudson from Michigan. Then they finished the draft off with Cameron Curl, safety, Arkansas, and James Smith Williams, defensive end out of North Carolina State. Looking at the Redskins, obviously, Chase Young, home run hit. Sadiq Charles, very good pick in terms of quality of player. Antonio Gandy Golden, very good pick in terms of quality of player. Khaleke Hudson, very good in terms of quality of player. And I give him an A. Like I said, I might not be sold on a couple of these guys, but the players that they did get, I am sold on. Sadiq Charles, it's going to be good as long as he can be on the field. Antonio Gandy Golden, he's going to be good. Believe me. Khaleke Hudson, he's a very solid player. At least he was at Michigan, and I think it could translate to the next level. They're just real solid all around. I like what the Redskins did. I gave them an A. The Vikings. Now, the Vikings were a team I didn't really know how to grade here, just because of how many picks they had. First, I'm gonna run off the list and then I'll come back. Justin Jefferson, receiver LSU. Jeff Gladney, corner TCU. Ezra Cleveland, offensive tackle out of Boise State. Cam Dantzler, corner out of Mississippi State. DJ Wanham, defensive end out of South Carolina. James Lynch, defensive tackle out of Baylor. Troy Dye, linebacker out of Oregon. Harrison Hand, corner out of Temple. KJ Osborne, receiver out of Miami. Blake Brandel, offensive tackle out of Oregon State. Josh Metlis, safety out of Michigan. Kenny Willix, defensive end out of Michigan State. Nate Stanley, quarterback out of Iowa. Brian Cole, corner out of Mississippi State. And Kyle Hinton, guard out of Washington. Now, because I had so many picks, I gave them a B- because I'm not really sure about some of these players. But don't get me wrong, the players that they did hit on are going to be good. Justin Jefferson, big bailout that they didn't take him with the Equals pick. Justin Jefferson, real good pick at 22. Jeff Gladney, real good pick. I had him as the fourth corner off my board behind Christian Fulton. They ended up getting him, pick 31. I had him going around the 20s. Jeff Gladney was still there. Good pick. Ezra Cleveland, a guy we've been hearing has been rising up in draft boards because he's a really good offensive tackle. Good pick. Cam Dantzler, a guy that I kind of wanted the Bears to take before starting to learn a little bit more about Jalen Johnson. But Cam Dantzler, very decent corner. He's going to be physical with you. He's not the biggest, but I like the pick. DJ Wanham, I'm not sold on him. James Lynch, I like the kid. Defensive tackle out of Baylor. He's a big part of why Baylor was really good this year. Troy Dye, linebacker out of Oregon. I have a question. Who allowed these people that were doing this draft analyst thing to sit there and say they said the question about Troy Dye is, does he have the passion for the game? Does he have what it takes? Does he have the passion for the game? The man played with a broken thumb. He broke his thumb and begged the coach to let him back in the game. And he actually did come back. And then the doctors had to hold him out of the game. What do you mean? He played with a club on his hand. What do you mean lacks the passion? Come on now. Stop playing these games with me, man. What passion does he lack? Troy Dye out of Oregon. Represent the Ducks, man. We love you out here. Troy Dye, go get your money. Go get your sacks. Troy Dye, just don't do it against the Bears, and we'll be happy. Then they went out and got Harrison Hand, corner out of Temple. I'm not sold. KJ Osborne, a guy I think has some upside at Miami. Brandel, not really sure what his upside is. Metlis, same thing there. Willix, a guy I like. I think he could be solid. Nate Stanley is not, I repeat, he is not the second option for you guys. I'm sorry. I don't like it. I'm not sold on Nate Stanley. I really am. Brian Cole, you get what you get. Same thing with Kyle Hinton. You had an overabundance of drafts or of picks. I would like to see you trade some of them. You got some real solid players, but you also got some guys that I'm not really sure about outside of depth purposes. Next, we got the Atlanta Falcons. I don't know what they were doing. I have no clue as to what they were doing. Early in this draft, they go out and they get A.J. Terrell, corner out of Clemson. I imagine that was because they kind of panicked when C.J. Henderson went off the board. So I'll give them a pass for that. And then they go out, they take Marlon Davidson, a guy I think was a very solid defensive tackle out of Auburn. He was a steal for when they got him. And they also got Matt Hennessy. I think he's going to be good. Guard out of Temple. But then they go out to Walker, the linebacker out of Fresno. You got Jalen Hawkins, safety out of California. And Sterling Hoffrichter, punter out of Syracuse. After Matt Hennessy, it fell off. And A.J. Terrell was not a home run hit in the first round. I think your best pick was Marlon Davidson, personally. Matt Hennessy was a good pick. I gave them a C. I'm not sold. The Falcons, you didn't have as bad of a draft as the Bears did because you at least took Matt Hennessy. You addressed some offensive line concerns earlier in the draft. But you definitely didn't have a draft to brag about. You definitely did not have a draft to brag about. And this is the only team that I have with an A++. I think they have the best draft, and that is because they got really good players when they shouldn't have. And I don't really think it's their scouting. I just think they got lucky in a lot of this, and they were smart enough to you know what, say, hey, let's get these good players. The 8th pick, they go out, they take Isaiah Simmons, the Cardinals. Isaiah Simmons, like I said, is second best player in this year's draft, at least in my book. He could play anywhere on the defense. He's lined up almost everywhere on the defense. Very solid guy. I love Isaiah Simmons' game. He's a very speedy linebacker. You can put him in the safety. You can put him in the coverage. You can put him on a receiver. You can put him on a tight end. You can put him on the line. Everything about Isaiah Simmons is just he can move all over the field. You can have him be a star at whatever position you want him to be a star at on defense. Isaiah Simmons, a real good player to Clemson, and then they get lucky and they get Josh Jones just falling into their lap later on day 2. I mean, he's a guy that was getting some first round hype. They get him late. They get him later in the draft. And then they go out and get a really solid defensive tackle out of Utah, Lakai Fotu, a guy that I think was a big reason why Utah was very successful last year. Very solid player. Then they went out and they got another defensive tackle in Rashard Lawrence, very solid defensive tackle out of Louisiana State University, LSU. And then they went out and got the Pac-12, one of the best players in the Pac-12, Evan Weaver. I don't know how this guy fell through the cracks. A very good player. He's been doing great things for California. He was a great player at California. He led the team with tackles. He did all this great stuff. I believe he had something like 200 and something tackles in the last 2 years. Something outrageous. But Evan Weaver, linebacker out of California, a real solid guy out of the Pac-12. I don't know how he fell this late in the draft. I like the kid. I think it was a real good pick. And then on top of that, on top of getting an Isaiah Simmons falling to you, on top of getting Josh Jones falling to you, on top of getting a Lakai Fotu and Rashard Lawrence falling to you, you know who else you get? You get Eno Benjamin late. Day 3. Eno Benjamin is a guy that's gonna be good. And I like everything about Eno Benjamin. This kid is special out of Arizona State. I'm telling you, he's gonna be good. Cardinals, you guys get an A++. I don't think you could have. I mean, you could have missed. You could have missed. Don't get me wrong. But you hit. I don't see any of these guys as bust. Isaiah Simmons, great player. Josh Jones, gonna be a good player. He's still a little bit developmental, but he will be good, in my opinion. Lakai Fotu, I think he's really good. Rashard Lawrence, a very solid guy to Louisiana State. And then Evan Weaver, I've already just praised him for being one of the best players in the Pac-12. And then, obviously, Eno Benjamin. Eno in the late day 3. Cardinals. You guys had a great draft. Let's also transition into somebody that might not have had a great draft, and the Los Angeles Rams. All right. They took Cam Akers, running back out of Florida State, Van Jefferson, receiver out of Florida, Terrell Lewis, defensive end out of Alabama, Terrell Burgess, corner out of Utah, Bryson Hopkins, tight end out of Purdue, Jordan Fuller, safety out of Ohio State University, Clay Johnson, linebacker out of Baylor, and then they actually had 2 more. Sam Sloman, kicker out of Miami, Ohio, and Tremaine Ankrum, the offensive tackle out of Clemson. The Rams, I gave you a B- for your picks. Cam Akers, I do like the pick. He's a guy that's going to be a good replacement for Todd Gurley, don't get me wrong. Van Jefferson, a guy I like, but I don't like him over Denzel Mims, and they passed over Denzel Mims to get this guy. Van Jefferson out of Florida, he could be very solid. He's a guy that saw some late rises on some draft boards. He's going to be decent. Terrell Lewis, once again, a very solid defensive end out of Alabama. Alabama always produces these solid guys. Terrell Burgess, corner out of Utah, playing on the opposite side of Jalen Johnson, obviously being the second corner there. I think he still has some potential to rise to. Bryson Hopkins, we've heard about him being possibly the second best tight end in this draft outside of Cole Kmet. I think he's going to have some potential to bank on here if you're the Rams. Jordan Fuller, he's an okay safety out of Ohio State. Clay Johnson, linebacker, Baylor. Sam Sloman, kicker out of Miami, Ohio. And then obviously Ankrum out of Clemson. The only reason I give them a B minus here is I don't really. These are solid guys, but I don't really know if they got better outside of maybe the Cam Akers pick. Because I just don't think they really did get better here in this draft. These could be solid players. I just don't think they got better. So I gave them a B minus. A team that did get better. They did get better. I'm going to give them a B on this draft. It is the San Francisco 49ers. I give them a B because of their trade for Trent Williams. Joe Staley is retired officially now. Trent Williams is going to be the new offensive lineman for you guys. And on top of that, you guys got a very solid top 10 defensive talent in this year's draft, and Javon Kinlaw, defensive tackle out of Southern Carolina. You traded up, you got Brandon Ayuk, receiver out of Arizona State, very solid receiver, a speeder. He's going to be good. But then from there, it kind of fell off. Colton McKivitz, offensive tackle of West Virginia. Charlie Warner, tight end out of Georgia. And then Jawan Jennings, the receiver out of Tennessee. I'm not in love with any of those guys outside. They got a B because of the Trent Williams pick, the Javon Kinlaw pick, and the Brandon Ayuk pick exclusively. Those were home runs. The rest of this draft, it just fell flat for me. They didn't hit the same. The 49ers, I'm sorry, just it wasn't great. And a team that I really like what you're doing, I did not give them an A. I did not give them an A+. I didn't give them an A-. The Buccaneers, they drafted Tristan Wirfs. They got Brady, his blocker, the offensive tackle out of Iowa. I don't know how he was there for pick 13. Don't ask me, but he was there. I love the pick. Antoine Winfield, safety out of Minnesota. Very solid safety, probably the second or third best safety in this year's draft behind Xavier McKinney and Grant Delpit. It's a jump ball really between them, and maybe if you want to throw Jeremy Chin in there. They also got Keyshawn Vaughn, running back out of Vanderbilt, but I claim him as from Illinois because he was at Illinois. Got to see him play live. Keyshawn Vaughn, a really solid player. He's gonna run past you. He's gonna help Brady out a little bit. You got a receiver in Tyler Johnson, not the biggest receiver, but he could be good. Khalil Davis, a defensive tackle out of Nebraska, getting one of these big Nebraska boys at the DT position. And then you got Chappelle Russell, linebacker out of Temple, and Raymond Calais, running back, Louisiana Lafayette. Very solid picks there for the Buccaneers. I gave them a B, mostly because the worst pick, the Winfield pick, the Vaughn pick, they hit different. Those are home run hits. And then after that, Tyler Johnson and Khalil Davis are good picks. And Chappelle Russell and Raymond Calais, I don't know too much about, so I gave them a B. I think they could have done better here in this draft, but the first 3 picks were good picks, if you ask me. Now, we go on to a team named the Carolina Panthers. The Panthers, I like the Panthers' first 3 picks. Outside of that, I'm not sold. Derek Brown, defensive tackle out of Auburn. The only question I have is why in the world would you pass on Isaiah Simmons? You just lost Luke Kuechly, man. Oh, I don't agree with that. I do not agree with that. And they didn't even address the linebacker position in this draft. They didn't even address it. They also got Yetur Gross Matos, defensive end out of Penn State. I've been saying I like this kid's abilities on the field, but I've also been saying the hazing thing, and where he got accused of hazing, could come back to bite him and cause some character concerns. They didn't mention anything about that. I don't want to out here and say anything bad about Yetur Gross-Matos, because last year, you can go on my Twitter, I said he's one of the best pass rushers I've seen in college football. He's going to get at him. I think he could be a 10-sack guy. He's one of them elite pass rushers, or I wouldn't say he's an elite, but he's one of the top 2-3 pass rushers in this year's draft behind Chase Young. He's really solid. Get him in day 2. Obviously, you can't be disappointed with that. Then you also get a safety in day 2 in Jeremy Chin. I've said Jeremy Chin's coverage is not the best. He has some problems kind of understanding angles to take on tackle. I wasn't sold on him as a first-round pick, but picking him on day 2, very solid. Obviously, you have Delpit off the board. You have McKinney off the board. He's the next best thing. I think it's a real solid pickup for the Panthers. But from then on, they go Troy Pride, corner out of Notre Dame. Not saying he's a bad player, just saying I'm not sold. Kenny Robinson, safety out of the XFL. I have one question. Is the XFL really going to be worth the investment? Did the XFL do enough? I don't know. I cannot honestly answer that. Then we have Bravion Roy, defensive tackle out of Baylor, another solid guy out of a very good team last year. And then you got Stanley Thomas Oliver, corner out of Florida International. First 3 picks, you did good. You did good outside of the fact of you passing on Isaiah Simmons. You didn't address linebacker. I think you might have been able to go in Evan Weaver or Curtis Weaver or maybe a Troy Dye, but you didn't do it. So for that, you get a B-. Your B- exclusively comes from your first 3 picks. I think you still need a linebacker. Now we have the worst graded team, or one of the worst graded teams that aren't one of my teams. The Seahawks. You guys had a horrible draft. I'm sorry. Jordan Brooks, linebacker, Texas Tech. He would have been there day 2. I think you could have got something out of that pick. You could have moved down. You still could have got the same guy. Defensive end, Darrell Taylor, Tennessee defensive end. Once again, still better guys on the board. Damian Lewis, guard at LSU. Not a bad player. Just not really sold on him. Colby Parkinson, tight end out of Stanford. I like him. He's a big guy. I believe he's like 6'6", 6'7". Very big target for Russell Wilson. I think he could be a plug-and-play kind of guy. Then you got DJ Dallas, running back out of Miami. I like the kid. He's able to do basically anything you ask of him. He's just a real solid running back. He can play returner if you need him to. I like him. Then you got Alton Robinson, defensive end out of Syracuse. Freddie Swain, receiver out of Florida, who I think has some good upside. And then Stephen Sullivan, tight end at LSU, who wasn't even the top LSU tight end that was supposed to be drafted. That was Thaddeus Moss. I mean, to me, Colby Parkinson, DJ Dallas, and Freddie Swain were the things to brag about if you're a Seahawks fan. And if you're walking out of the draft with that to brag about for the positions you take him in, I wouldn't consider it a good draft. That's a C- draft to me. I think you could have got Jordan Brooks round 2. Zach Baum was still on the board. You could have went Yetur Gross-Matos. You could have went AJ Epinesa. It was just they did not do a good job going into this draft. Next, we had the Green Bay Packers. Like I said, can't be giving them A-, A's, A+s out here. And a lot of people think the Packers were losers. A lot of people have Packers with some C's, some D's. They don't like what the Packers did. Me, on the other hand, I love what the Packers did. From a general manager, coach kind of standpoint, I'm not trying to look at this as a fan. I know exactly what they're doing. They're setting up for a future without Aaron Rodgers. They realize Aaron Rodgers is 36 years old. Yes, they do have him employed for a few more seasons. Yes, Aaron Rodgers has said, you know what? If they're not going to bring in a quarterback that's going to beat me in a quarterback battle, it's just not going to happen. And they're not going to. Jordan Love is not there to beat Aaron Rodgers out year 1. He's not. And I know a lot of people are sitting there saying he's going to do what he did to Brett Favre, and Jordan Love's going to do that to Rodgers. He's going to run him out of town. No, that's not what's going to happen. I'm sorry. 2 years. They're gonna groom Jordan Love under Aaron Rodgers. They're gonna do a lot of what Jimmy Garoppolo was used for in New England. They're gonna develop this big arm guy. He's not the most accurate, but you know that Aaron Rodgers has that Hail Mary pass in his pocket. When they look at Jordan Love and see that big arm on Jordan Love, that's exactly what they're thinking of. They're thinking of, oh my God, we can have Hail Mary heave for another 10 years. You're going to love that. Jordan Love is not there to be a day one starter. He is not there to be a this year guy. He's not there to be a next year guy. He's there for 2-3 years down the line. They're going to groom him. They're going to get him exactly where they want him, and then they're going to throw him into the fire. I like the pick at Jordan Love. Outside of the fact that they took him so that New England couldn't, I think it was a good fit. Then on top of that, you showed investment in your Jordan Love pick. You draft A.J. Dillon. He's going to be a guy that's going to get some touches this year. He's just going to be a real solid guy at a Boston college. He's a guy he's more of a physical back. I like him. Then you also got Josiah DeGuara, tight end out of Cincinnati. One of the best Cincinnati tight ends. He had a record. I don't know who he beat for it. Was it Selleck? It might have been Selleck. I know they said, I don't know who it was. To be 100% honest. But he had 1,000 yards. One of the better tight ends to come out of Cincinnati. So it might not be the sexy pick there with the Packers, but they're just getting a lot of guys that are quality players that are going to be there for the future. And then they also got Kamal Martin, linebacker out of Michigan. Once again, another solid Michigan linebacker coming off the board. John Runyon, Jake Hansen, both guards. Runyon out of Michigan, Hansen out of Oregon. Represent Oregon. I just don't like the fact that you're in Green Bay. Jake Hansen, a real solid guy. You can plug and play him. Same thing with Runyon. Two very quality day one starters. They don't have all the potential in the world, but they can be very solid. Simon Stepanak, guard out of Indiana. He's a little bit of a project. Then you got Vernon Scott, safety out of TCU, and Jonathan Garvin, defensive end out of Miami. Very good draft for the Packers. I think you set Jordan Love up for success in the future. You got him two guards this year that are going to be able to develop alongside Jordan Love during training camp, and then they might get some playing time with Aaron Rodgers. I don't know if either of them are going to start, but they definitely can get the feel for it. Very, very solid draft there for the Packers. I know a lot of Packers fans aren't looking at it and they're like, well, you never got Aaron Rodgers as a receiver. I think you might be okay. I do agree you needed a receiver. Maybe I would have took one instead of Vernon Scott and Jonathan Garvin. But the two guards you took, in Hansen and Runyon, the tight end you took, the linebacker you took, the running back you took, the quarterback you took, setting you up for the future. I like it. And next we have a team that they did good. The Jets. I gave them an A-. They took Mekhi Becton, offensive tackle out of Louisville. Big guy. A guy that he has all the potential in the world. The only thing that had my concern was the diluted sample on the drug test. That didn't affect him. He doesn't have the strike against him. He's fine. Mekhi Becton's going to be good. I don't think he's never had a character concern at Louisville. I think he'll be perfectly fine in the NFL. I think the Jets got a good one with Mekhi Becton. And then on top of that, they got another good one. Denzel Mims, the next best guy behind T. Higgins in the second round, at least for me going into the second round. Denzel Mims is a guy that I think was the next best. I think it would have been like a Jerry Jeudy, Ceedee, Henry Ruggs, maybe a LaVisca Chenault, then T. Higgins and Denzel Mims in that order. But I think you got a steal there. You didn't take him at a crazy high position. I think they got him like at 59 or something like that. You got a steal there with Denzel Mims. Then they also took a very solid safety out of California, Ashton Davis, one of the top safeties in this year's draft. And they took a defensive end, a very good defensive end, out of Florida, and Jabari Zuniga. Then they also went running back dipping back into that Florida pot, LaMichael P. Ryan, a guy that I thought could have been a little bit higher coming into this year. Then he kind of just didn't really have the best season. He could be a good player in the NFL, though. Then they also went out and got James Morgan, quarterback out of Florida International. Somebody I'm not sold on. Cameron Clark, guard, Charlotte, also not sold on. But then it gets interesting. They take Bryce Hall, corner out of Virginia, late in the draft. I like the pick. I think it was a smart pick. It's a really good pick. And then they drafted a punter to close things out in Brandon Mann out of Texas A&M. So when you look at it, they had a real good draft. The first 4 picks, and Becton, Mims, Davis, and Zuniga, real good picks. And then also Bryce Hall. So I gave him an A- for this year's draft. Next, we had the Pittsburgh Steelers. Now, this is a team that didn't have many picks. They hit on at least one pick, and that is Chase Claypool, receiver, Notre Dame. Big receiver. The only problem I have with him, once again, is the guy taken before Denzel Mims. Then they went out and they got Alex Highsmith, defensive end out of Charlotte. Don't know if you can put him in right away. I just don't like taking these non-major college guys early in the draft. I just don't like doing it, especially if it's just a little bit of a risk. I don't like doing it, especially when I know I could get them in the 3rd, 4th round. But not a bad player in Alex Highsmith, at least at the level he was playing. Then we had Anthony McFarland, running back out of Maryland. I think he could be a very interesting guy for the Steelers. I don't know how great he will be, but he could be interesting. Then you got Kevin Dotson, guard out of Louisiana. Antoine Brooks, the safety out of Maryland. And Carlos Davis, a defensive tackle out of Nebraska. So a very solid draft there for the Steelers. However, you didn't make any big splash moves outside of Chase Claypool, so I'm going to have to give you a C+. Just wasn't that impressive of the draft at the end of the day. It's just a well-rounded, decent draft. Next we have the Cleveland Browns. I would really pay for somebody to care about a quarterback in Chicago the way that a lot of these other teams do. What did the Browns do in this draft? They go and get Baker Mayfield help. Now Baker Mayfield has no excuses. He should not fail next year. He got Jedrick Wills, 1st round, offensive tackle out of Bama. Probably a lot of people are considering the best offensive lineman here. They got him at 10. Very big steal there. Then they go out and, this isn't the offensive side, they go out and they get probably the biggest steal of the draft, in my opinion, at 44, a 1st round player in the 2nd round, safety Grant Delpit. Very good player. Then you got Jordan Elliott, very good defensive tackle out of Missouri. Then you got Jacob Phillips, a linebacker at LSU, who I think has some big potential. Harrison Bryant, tight end at FAU. He has some big potential. The only problem with him is he's coming from one of them smaller schools, so you don't necessarily know if it will translate with the level of competition. I think he could be something good in the NFL. Then they got Nick Harris, guard out of Washington, not really sold on, but they also got Donovan Peoples-Jones, a guy that I really like out of Michigan, receiver. I think he could also be a surprise player for you guys. He's going to be, I don't know if he'll be a receiver 3, but he could fight for that receiver 3 position for you guys. I think he could be real solid. Jedrick Wills, Grant Delpit, both day 1 starters. Jacob Phillips might be able to be a starter for you guys. The Browns, I think you did real solid here. Harrison Bryant, guy I think you could plug in alongside your already good tight end core. But, I mean, Harrison Bryant next to Njoku it just feels right. It just feels right. And then obviously I've said Jacob Phillips. I think he has some potential. I like the way they went with this draft. I gave him an A. I think they did real solid in this year's draft. Next, we got a very, very bad grade, and that's the Texans. Now, looking at the Texans, they got Ross Blacklock, defensive tackle at TCU, and that was by far their best selection. Jonathan Greenard, also defensive end out of Florida. That was a decent selection. Then they went out and got Charlie Heck, offensive tackle at UNC, John Reed, corner out of Penn State, and Isaiah Coulter, receiver out of Rhode Island. I gave him a D plus because there's better players on the board than what they went with at positions they went with. Instead of taking a John Reed, you could have went a Bryce Hall. Instead of taking an Isaiah Coulter, you could have went Donovan Peoples-Jones. Prince Tega would have been on the board. I'm just not sold on any of the guys they went with outside of Ross Blacklock and Greenard. I gave them a D plus. They didn't have a great showing at this year's draft. Hopefully some of these guys hit, but you had 5 picks. You didn't have too much investment in this draft, and I don't really feel like they did enough research going into this draft because they're just like, you know what? It's not going to affect us that much. It really isn't. Now, a team that had a good draft, if you ask me, the Titans. They drafted Isaiah Wilson, offensive tackle out of Georgia. You might have been able to get him in the second round. You got him in the first round. That's fine because in the second round, you're able to address the need in Christian Fulton, a good corner on LSU. I thought Christian Fulton was for sure going to be a day one guy. He wasn't. You were able to get him on day 2. Very big steal there for me, at least. You got a speedster to put alongside the power in Derrick Henry. You got to change the pace back in Darrington Evans, another App State guy coming out. He's a running back. Love the game. He's gonna be a good speedster to put next to Derrick Henry. You can have Derrick Henry go in, he can be the workhorse, and he comes off the field, and everybody on the defense is already tired because they're getting run through by one of the best running backs, if not the best running back in the entire league. And then you put in this little fast guy that he's just going to outrun everybody because everybody else is tired because they just keep getting ran over by Derrick Henry. Count me in. Darrington Evans, good, solid pick. Then they went out and they got Laurel Murchison, defensive tackle out of North Carolina State. And they also went out and got Cole McDonald, quarterback out of Hawaii. I think he's going to be a very interesting guy. I think he could be a possible replacement for Tannehill. I know you just resigned Tannehill, but I think he'll be interesting with McDonald. I don't think he is all that bad. And then you got Chris Jackson, safety out of Marshall. I gave him a B. I really like the picks of Fulton, Wilson, Darrington Evans, and Cole McDonald. I think they could have done a little bit better here, but very solid draft if you ask me. Next, we had the Indianapolis Colts. They are another team that I think had a better draft than a lot of people are giving credit. First pick in the draft, they take Michael Pittman, receiver out of University of Southern California. He's a bigger receiver. I think he's like 6'2". Just when you turn on the man's tape, he has the speed, he has the ball abilities, he can get to the outside. He's just a really good player. He's well-rounded. The thing about him, though, is I think his brother, true freshman from Oregon last year, could be better. Micah Pittman, also a receiver. I think he could be better than Michael. I think he might be a first-round receiver. So that's something to watch for in the future. But Michael Pittman, very good receiver. I like the fit with Indianapolis. You got Phillip Rivers throwing to him, so it should be good. Then you got another good pick, best player available situation here in a devalued position. Jonathan Taylor, running back out of Wisconsin. Running back is a position that's kind of been devalued over the years. They just run him into the ground and they throw him aside. They don't have much use for the running backs. Jonathan Taylor, he was a workhorse at Wisconsin. He already has a lot of wear and tear on his body, but we know you're getting a good running back, and that's exactly what they did in taking Jonathan Taylor. Then they got Julian Blackmon, a safety out of Utah. I think he could be a very good player. He can get interceptions. I like his game. He's a very good safety. Then you got Jacob Eason. You got him late, quarterback of Washington, and that's going to get teams to start thinking about trading for Jacoby Brissett. Jacob Eason, he's a good player. I'm not also also satisfied with his film. He had some character concerns. They questioned his ability to actually want to play football. Outside of that, Eason, he has a solid arm, decent player. Obviously being a true freshman starting at Georgia and then getting ran out by Jake Fromm, Eason is going to draw some attention from some NFL teams. I think he still has the talent. I just think it's the matter of the Colts kind of rewiring his talent to their needs. Then they went out and got Danny Pinter, guard out of Ball State. Robert Windsor, defensive tackle at Penn State. Isaiah Rogers, corner at a university in Massachusetts. They also got out Desmond Patton, receiver at Washington State University, and Jordan Glasgow, safety out of Michigan. So to me, this is a very good draft. I mean, Pittman, I think he hit on him. Taylor, I think he hit on him. Blackman, I think that was a real solid pick. Eason, I think, is a good guy kind of to just add a little fuel to the fire to that quarterback room for Phillip Rivers and kind of develop under Phillip Rivers. He might be able to take the reins, but he will get to develop there. And I also like Desmond Patton, really good receiver out of Washington State. Got to see him a few times this year. And then Jordan Glasgow, very interesting name at safety. I think he has some potential as well. Not so sure about Pinter or Windsor or Rogers, but I do like the other guys. Wow. How many more picks we got? All right, we're getting to the end. Next, we have the Jacksonville Jaguars, and the Jacksonville Jaguars, y'all did good. I like it a lot. The Jaguars, man, they hit home runs with most of their picks. With the 9th pick, they took C.J. Henderson. I love the fit. I love the pick. It's a replacement for Jalen Ramsey. That's good stuff already. You like to see it. C.J. Henderson, he's a physical corner. He's not going to get you the most interceptions, but he's also not going to let many people catch the ball. He's a really good guy out of Florida. Like that pick. Then you got Kayvon Chasen, a high potential, very high ceiling, but also a relatively low floor, kind of like a Leonard Floyd kind of guy. When he gets going, he could get 2-3 sacks, maybe even 4 in a game. But when he gets silenced, you ain't gonna get much out of him. Kayvon Chasen, I hope is gonna be one of those guys that develops into one of those maybe 1 sack, 2 sacks a game guys. That could probably be a 10+ sack guy. I really think he could develop into that. Kayvon Chasen, I really like the guy. Out of LSU, he has a lot of upside. Then you got Laviska Shenault, receiver out of Colorado. You got him day 2. I think that's a steal. Not necessarily the kind of receiver I thought they would be in play for, but Laviska Shenault, a very solid pick at the receiver position. Then they went out, they got Davon Hamilton, a defensive tackle out of Ohio State, another guy I think come in, be a potential candidate to start next year. Davon Hamilton, a really solid player out of Ohio State. And then they also got Ben Barch, offensive tackle to St. John's. I like him. He's a guy you can tell he's dedicated. He's just a guy that he puts in the work both on the field and off the field. Putting on weight. He gained it was like 59 pounds over the last 2 years just so he could be on the offensive line. You can just tell he wants it out of St. John's, coming from that type of place. A lower end, or not a lower end, but like a lesser known for football college. You're gonna when you have this dream of making it to the NFL and you go to one of these smaller colleges, you're gonna want to know a little bit more. I'm not saying that he wants it more than any of these other guys that I've said are coming from a smaller college, and I don't know how much you can believe in him. But I think he could be good. And then you got Josiah Scott out of Michigan State. I don't know how good that pick was, but C.J. Henderson, I like the pick. Kayvon, like the pick. Laviska, like the pick. Davon, like the pitch. Barch, like the pick. That's an A draft, if you ask me. Great job with the draft for the Jacksonville Jaguars. All right, now we're getting to the latter end of things. We got one of the last teams. It is the second to last team, actually. And finally, I can rest my voice after this. We got the Kansas City Chiefs, the Super Bowl defending champions Chiefs. What did they go in this draft? Well, they started it off. They got themselves a receiving running back in Clyde Edwards-Helaire. He's going to be nasty next to Patrick Mahomes. If you thought that offense was good last year, wait till this kid gets there. He's going to be good out of the backfield for them. Then they also got a very high potential player if he can stay on the field. Willie Gay Jr., real good when he's on the field. Hopefully he can stay on it. Lucas Niang, another guy, I think he could be very good. Offensive tackle out of TCU. I just think he's a little bit of a project. And then they got L'Jarius Sneed, safety out of Louisiana Tech. They got Michael Dana, a defensive end out of Michigan, and they got Thacarius Keys, a corner out of Tulane. To me, the top 3 names I read off are very, very good picks. Edwards-Helaire, I think he's going to be a hit. Willie Gay, as long as he can stay on the field, I think he's going to be a hit. And Lucas Niang, I think it's more of a jump ball, whether he's going to develop properly or not, but I think he could be a hit. L'Jarius Sneed, Michael Dana, and Thacarius Keys, I'm not saying they're not great players or good players or whatever. I'm just not sold on them. I'm giving the Chiefs a B-. All right. The second to last team here in the Las Vegas Raiders. A lot of people aren't liking the Raiders draft. I, on the other hand, am going to give them a little bit of credit here. Henry Ruggs, receiver, Bama. The only problem I have with it is Jerry Jeudy's on the board. I've paired him to Amari Cooper. I've called him Amari Cooper Jr. Jerry Jeudy is that guy. So it's a little questionable. Then another questionable pick, Damon Arnett, corner out of Ohio State. Good pick, or a good player. Just a little high for him. He's a second-round player. You get him in the first. I'm not sold. I think a Jeff Gladney here makes more sense. That's just me. But very interesting there, taking Damon Arnett. Then you got Lynn Bowden. Now, this is an interesting guy. He's receiver out of Kentucky, but last year he played some quarterback because their quarterback kind of got hurt. But I think the NFL, he's going to be a receiver. He has a lot of good tools that you like to see at a receiver position. He's fast. I think Lynn Bowden could be something special. Then they also got Brian Edwards, a receiver out of Southern Carolina. I think he could be something decent. Then you got Tanner Muse, a real solid player at Clemson. He did a lot for them last year. Lined up in the box. He lined up at safety. He's going to be a safety in the NFL. But Tanner Muse is just one of those guys, very smart player. I think you're going to... he's not going to get a lot of love from a lot of people, but he's just a really solid player. I like him. Then you got John Simpson, a guard out of Clemson, a little bit of a developmental project, and Amik Robertson, a little bit of a developmental project out of Liberty, cornerback. I like Amik Robertson, though. I think he could be something decent in this league. John Simpson, it's a little bit of development. I don't know how much faith I'm going to put into saying that he's going to be good. But the Raiders, I'm going to give him B-. Ruggs, he fits the system. They want to be able to run fast. They want to be able to get up and down the field. Makes sense. Damon Arnett, I don't know if that was the best pick. Lynn Bowden fits the system. Fast. Brian Edwards fits the system. Tanner Muse, very smart player. Could be very solid for that defense. I like a lot of those guys. I don't agree with how they went about getting him and where they got him, but I like a lot of the guys they got. And last, and thankfully, the end, we were going to talk about the Broncos, and I'm finally going to get a rest of my voice because I'm kind of getting a little tired of speaking. We got the Denver Broncos taking Jerry Jeudy, receiver out of Alabama, Amari Cooper Jr. I've said it, I'll say it again, I will continue to say it until I am right and everybody agrees with me. Amari Cooper Jr. is what I'm going to call Jerry Jeudy, because this kid's special. And what does a team like the Broncos do when they need to draft a Jerry Jeudy to put alongside a Cortland Sutton and no other receivers? They go out and get a fast, speedy KJ Hamler receiver out of Penn State. That's good already. You're investing in Drew Lock. You're getting him weapons. Jerry Jeudy, KJ Hamler, Cortland Sutton. Drew Lock has all the talent he needs. Then you go defense. You're out here. You're getting some replacements on the corner side. You get Michael Ajemudia, cornerback out of Iowa. And then you got a pick I like. You went out and you got Lloyd Cushenberry, guard out of the Louisiana State University, LSU. I wanted the Bears to get him. They passed on him because the Bears aren't very smart. But the Broncos, they saw the potential in Lloyd Cushenberry, and they saw that he might be able to be a starter initially for them. So props to the Broncos for seeing that. And they went out and got McTelvin Agim, defensive tackle out of Arkansas. I'm not going to sit here and act like I know much about him. I don't. Then they also went out and got Albert Okwuegbunam, tight end out of Missouri. Big guy. I like the kid. He's a guy coming into this year. I thought he might be the top tight end in this class. Kind of slid a little bit, but I think he could be very solid for the Broncos. Then you got Justin Strnad, linebacker out of Wake Forest. Netane Moody, big guy, guard out of Fresno. He was kind of getting some middle day 2 vibes. He was there day 3, and that's a steal if you ask me. Then they went receiver out of Florida, dipping back into them Florida receivers. We've seen a lot of people do it this year, and they take Tyree Cleveland. And last but not least, they went out and they got Derek Tutska, defensive end out of North Dakota State University. With that being said, the Broncos ended up getting an A for my review of their draft. Anyways, thank you for listening to the Forward on Sports podcast. This is coming out on Monday as you guys are seeing it. I actually did record this on very early Sunday. It is about, right now it is 3:41 a.m. So I've been recording this for like the past 2 hours almost. So do know I put in a lot of effort into figuring out the grades and putting everybody where I thought they could be and giving you guys some analysis here. Anyways, on Wednesday, I will recap the undrafted free agents that have been signed. I did not want to put that into this. I did not want to talk about any of them, even though some have been announced, because I knew first off that I would get tired. My voice would get tired, but I also wanted to be able to talk about something on Wednesday. And I knew there's not going to be much coming up on Wednesday outside of possibly a basketball return conversation. But we'll leave that for Wednesday, and we will just leave this to the NFL Draft review. Anyways, I thank you guys for listening to the Forward on Sports podcast. Make sure, if you are watching this on YouTube, to subscribe. Make sure if you're watching this on Podbean, make sure to follow and share and do whatever you guys want, man. We're starting off. Just be part of the journey. Be part of the Forward on Sports journey, where we will one day, hopefully, be able to do this on a live television show in front of a TV screen, on your TV screen, whatever. Hopefully, that is the goal. So I will be continuing this, even if it's not getting the love and that shit. We're going to continue the journey, man. We're going to continue the journey. Let's go on to the next step. Anyways, thank you for listening to the podcast. I will talk to you guys about the undrafted free agents on Wednesday. But right now, I need to get some sleep, man.